Okay, nice question to start with. Are active checks not enough in first of all, am I audible over here? Yeah. Okay. Are active checks not enough in Nagios? Why the concept of passive checks existed? Because sometimes your systems might not be in the same network of where your Nagios server is. Okay. It might be your production server where it is allowed to communicate, but you are not allowed to get into the production network. Then, and your customer doesn't accept basically getting into the production networks. There could be many scenarios. Or you are trying to monitor a device. You are trying to monitor a device which is non what do you say which is non general system kind of a machine. Then so there are many factors. Okay, there are many factors. For example, you are monitoring a switch, and on the switch, if the ping protocol is not supported, it uses some sort of telnet protocol. Then so these are the kind of problems where we go with passive kind of checks, right? Yeah, but that is very rare. I'm not saying that it happens every day. It happens rarely, but we should at least know that there is a concept called as passive checks where you use an external application to get in your monitoring data within Nagios server. All right. Yeah. For general servers on general networks, you really don't need all of that. Okay, then. So I think we had Nagios installed yesterday, 3 or 4. You basically choose whatever is simpler for your installation. I've shown 2 because I don't want you to waste your time in installation. Okay, I want you to look at the configurations basically. Okay, let me get into Nagios 4. Okay, while this machine is bringing up, what I'll do is I'll launch 3 more machines. I'll just put it as servers. Really not interested in what basically they are supposed to do. Assume that they are part of your architecture. We don't need key for this, but it's okay. Now let us launch instances. Fine. Good. I have one Nagios server and 3 servers are bringing up. My whole objective is from my Nagios 4 server, I want to monitor all the 3 of them. It should show me some details on the web page saying that, okay, this is how the statistical data of these servers like. Okay. So to do that, what is that? What are the different steps which I need to do? Okay. Generally, we don't do application protocol using application monitoring using Nagios. We just do system monitoring. Okay. Nagios is not meant for application monitoring. All right. Yeah. Okay. Now, all these machines are in the same network. I can go with private IP address also. I can go with private IP address also. Okay. So let us go back to install Nagios for Ubuntu. Let us go back to our installation stuff yesterday, wherever we have followed, because we need some links from there, right? If you scroll down to this bottom, okay, yeah, we have the following configuration files. Okay, so we have Nagios contact, okay, nagios.cfg files, right? You can basically put whatever that makes sense to you, right? What I do is, let's see, the basic configuration for, okay, user local, let's see, yeah, user local Nagios, let's see, nagios.cfg. This path, right, it changes from distribution to distribution. If you install Nagios on Red Hat, it might not be here. So please follow the documentation to find out where it is. Okay, every time it will not be there. So what generally people do is, if you know the concept of symlink, okay, this folder will be mapping to etc Nagios as a symlink, so that we basically access on one folder irrespective of your operating system. But the folder path which I'm showing over here, if you do it on Red Hat or OpenSUSE, I'm not sure that whether they will be here. So you have to follow the documentation. Pratisari ikkade undadu. It changes from distribution to distribution, right? Okay. Now let us come over here. All the logs of Nagios will be stored in this file. So if you want to see whenever Nagios fails, go into this path. And if you want log at some other folder, just put your path over there. All right. And then basically these are all your configuration files. I think yesterday we have navigated to this folder over here. He says that the following are the configuration files. We have commands.cfg, contacts.cfg, time periods.cfg, right? And these are all the basic files which basically consists of all the details. And this is the whole set of your configuration file. Anything which you change in Nagios, okay, as a basic stuff will be here. Everything, all the configurations, right? We might not touch all the configurations, but if you want to touch any configuration with respect to Nagios, yes, this is a place. Okay. Now out of all of this, okay, so this is important. Status update interval. For what duration will Nagios try to basically find out? By default, it is 10 seconds. If you want to reduce it or increase it, this is the place where you go and increase it. Okay. So any configuration with respect to Nagios at the system level is done over here, right? Okay. Now let me get into basically interesting areas. Okay. User local Nagios etc objects, right? This is where I want to be now. User local etc ls, and if you see, there is a folder called as objects ls. So these are the different configuration files that are being read. Okay. Now we have a file called as Nagios, and I'm localhost.nagios, localhost.configuration file. Now I want to basically add this. So let me change this to server one. So from this, I want to monitor this. All right. Server one.cfg. Okay. Fine. Now I have server one.cfg. Vi. Okay. Now come over here. Define host, host name, right? What will be the host name? Host name will be the private IP address of this machine. So I'm copying the private IP address of this machine. Okay, alias is, how do you want to call it? I want to call it as server 1. Okay, so generally the best practice is, even at the alias, use the host name, so that you will not have any confusions. Okay, ideally the best way is, even for the alias, try to give the same name whatever you are giving in the host name. Okay, so then you will not have problems, because what will happen if someone else also calls this as a server 1? Okay, so I'm going to do this. Right, this is the very safest thing to be done. Okay, because no two machines can have the same host name. It is not possible, right? Okay, now IP address of this machine. IP address is, you can read it from the top, or you can go in the private IPs and copy it. 172.31.21.206. Now come down. Host group definition, Linux servers. Okay, I'm not really interested in host group. Okay, host group is when you have logical groups, right? As of now, I'm adding my one machine. It's okay. Yeah. Service definition. Okay. So he wants to do the ping. Yes, I want to do the ping. And on which host do you want to do? Whatever host which I've created right now. Yes. And then, okay, I'm just changing the host name. If you see what I'm trying to do, I'm just trying to change the host name. Is it very difficult? The only thing is, I have copy pasted, and then I am trying to basically change my details to match my stuff. Okay, since it is one machine, I am doing this. If it is more than one machine, or if it is tens and hundreds of machines, rather than using a host name, I would have used host group name, and I would have created a host group with all the list of machines over there. Okay, whatever that makes sense to you, fine. Okay, so now basically, whenever you change any configuration, it is very important to do pre-flight checks. What is it? Pre-flight checks. What is that pre-flight checks? Any configurations which you change in Nagios, right? To apply them, you have to restart Nagios or restart Apache server. But whenever you restart Apache server or restart Nagios, what would happen is, if there is even a single thing that is wrong in your configuration files, the complete Nagios won't start. Okay, Nagios will not work with error based configuration files. So what would happen is, if you try to give a path which is wrong in one of the configuration files, complete Nagios won't start. Okay, so there was a monitoring that was happening. You have changed the configuration files and you have started the service, and now complete Nagios is stopped. Is that a right thing to be done? So there should be some sort of a check where we need to find out whatever configurations which we have done with respect to Nagios, are they good or bad? Okay, if they are bad, we will correct it. But if you restart it, you might bring down all the Nagios if there are configuration mistakes, right? So did we got the point? Every time whenever you change a configuration file, please don't blindly restart Nagios or restart Apache. Okay, I would recommend always do the checking. So how do I do the checking is, okay, oh man, ls bin slash. Are you seeing Nagios in bin? Okay. So bin slash Nagios minus v is verify, and in this minus v you should be giving the path of CFG file. So let us give the path of CFG file. Where is CFG file? Dot slash at c Nagios dot CFG. Are you seeing any errors? But if you have done anything wrong in the configuration file, this command will tell you that there is something wrong. Okay. So always remember minus v is verify. You have to give Nagios minus v and path to your configuration file, which is nagios.cfg file, and it says that everything is basically going good. Now service restart Nagios. What was it? Nagios.service, is it? Correct? Sudo service Apache to restart. Yeah. Yeah. Good. So only when you restart, the new configuration should be applied. Now let us see whether they are applied or not. So how would I go to that path? Go to the Nagios 4 server. The IP address of it, http:/// Nagios. This should give you username, which is Nagios admin, and whatever password which you have set while you are installing. Right. Now let me go to the hosts. How many hosts am I seeing here? So our configuration is still not enough. It is just recognized only localhost.cfg. All right. Okay. Now what is the configuration file which decides it? All the configurations are in which configuration file? Okay. Are you seeing something called as localhost.cfg? Yes. But did we added our new file? Our new file add chesam man ikkada. So I'll be basically creating. That's why it is not seeing it. Okay. In configuration files in Nagios can be done in two ways. One is CFG file, and if you scroll down, there is something called a CFG dir. If you don't want to add individual file, you can give a directory path and then add it. But as of now, let me go with CFG file itself first. You can do anything. In Nagios 3, the default setting is CFG dir. Right? CFG file slash user slash local Nagios at c objects. If I am not wrong, I have written server -1.cfg. Yes. Now let me execute the pre-flight check again. Are you seeing some errors? Yeah. Cannot open file. No such file or directory is found. Okay. So ls at c objects server -1 kada server 1. All right. So if you see now in this state, if I try to restart my Nagios, right, Nagios will not start. So all the monitoring will stop. So if I have done sudo server Nagios start, it would have failed, and then it would have stopped the complete Nagios. Right? Always do -v stuff. Okay. Now we can correct the error. So vi come over here. Okay. Now again the path checking. Good. We are good now. Now sudo service Nagios restart. Okay. If you want, you can restart the Apache server also. Safe. Better do both. Okay. Okay. Am I seeing two servers now? Yes. And now I'll click on this. Okay. This is the following details. Now let me get into services. Now if you see, the following is basically being checked. Nothing has been passed till now. Okay. So it will take its own time and then it would come up with the results of this, whether it is a success or a failure. Right. Now if I have to add one more machine, what is the path now? Create one more configuration file called as server-2. Or if you don't want to do all of this mess, what you can do is rather than disable all the CFG file and then enable one CFG dir. All right. So generally in real time, what we do is this configurations, right? The CFG dir. CFG dir, we put it in Git. We put it in Git. Okay. We clone that in on the machine where we have installed Nagios server. And any change which we do into the configuration files, we'll be doing it in Git, or we'll be committing it back to Git, whatever it is. Right. And in the Nagios configuration file in the CFG dir, you will be giving the clone path of your Git, so that no matter where your Nagios is installed, you have a configuration dir, which is the directory that has been cloned from your GitHub repository. So that if you want to replicate the same Nagios server on other machine, if the Nagios crashes, it is very simple for us. You have to just have Nagios 4 and rest of the settings are quite as usual. That's the whole stuff, right? Yeah. Some of the services are slowly coming up. To the last time, everything was not that. Now current load is good, current users is good, then it would basically check into all of the stuff. Okay. Anything that is not so correct will be basically showing over here. The swap usage on the system is not going good, so that's why it is showing the error on this, right? Okay. Now let's see. Okay, let me get into objects. Okay, and now if I adding one more server is just basically copying and pasting the configuration. I'm okay with that. Okay. So oh, okay. Now there are other configuration files like printers and all of that. Okay. So generally, if you want, you can go with this stuff, or you can go with your own folder structure. Okay, right? In enterprise, what we do is we don't go with this basic structure, we go with our own structure. Okay, we'll be creating a folder called as Nagios configurations, and in that we'll be writing our own CFG files. Yeah, we might copy some of this data over there, that is for sure, but actually we would basically host it to a different directory. So for that, what is that we would be changing? We'll be changing into the nagios.cfg, change the CFG dir and give the directory path of wherever you have your configuration files. Right. Now let me get into some other details. Commands.cfg. This we have seen, right? Okay. So the command line which you are seeing over here, there is a special syntax for it. For example, let me show you the check ping command. All right. So Nagios commands. I want the Nagios site itself. Okay. Now what I do is, let me go into my home directory. We have two folders which we have installed it from yesterday, right? So let me see what is in here. This is all code, right? Okay. And yesterday while we were building our file, the one stuff that is very much useful is make. Okay. All of the stuff has been taken from here. Okay. And this is how your code is being built. This consists of all of the steps of where your configurations would be. Okay. Good. Now, fine. Let me get into one more folder over here, which is Nagios plugins. Same thing over here. Okay. You have all of the details over here, and the Nagios plugins will be copied into some of the path where you configure it. All right. Okay. Now uh, let us install one software into that so that we can find out the folder structures easily. Okay. So sudo apt-get install tree, and let me become a root user for some time so that I don't need to give sudo every time. Okay. So cd user share, what was it? User local, is it? Or what was the configuration? Where was it? User local Nagios. Yeah. Good. Now let us get into some of the folders over here. Okay. So tree bin. This is the executable of Nagios. All the commands will be executed from here. So any commands which are being run. Okay. Now tree at C. This is your configuration files. Okay. So the basic Nagios details and the resources details, everything is present over here. All the configuration details. Right. Now tree include nothing. Tree libxec. Are you seeing something here? Yes. Have you seen something called as check underscore ping? And are you seeing something over here? Okay. So these are all the executables which are doing the job. These are all the executables which are doing the job. Now let me get into this folder. cd libxec. And now let me execute. Okay. If you see in the check ping, you have to give the following arguments. That is what it says. So, okay, check ping minus h localhost. It says no, it is not enough. You have to still give me basically more configurations. Okay. So minus w 10. Oh, sorry. 10 comma 10 percentage minus C 5 comma 5%. Okay, so it says cannot be larger, so this is the upper limit. Let us make it 15. I'm really going without basically looking at the documentation, but let us see what this means. Okay, the arguments which you are passing over here will determine whether your test is a success or a failure. Okay, now if you see what it says, ping is okay. Now let me go ahead and change these numbers to 1. Okay, it is still okay because ping is being successful. Okay, basically the numbers which you are passing over here, every command has a command line argument. That is what an Nagios plugin will say. Okay, Nagios command check underscore ping. Yes, every command will have some similar documentation. You have to get to it and find out how to use it. Okay, generally we don't do it for ping and all of that, but if you see, he would try to give you all the different details of it. Okay, he says that check underscore ping to check the connection statistics. Okay, minus v is versions, minus 4 will use IPv4 address, minus 6 IPv6, minus h warning. For warning, what should be the error message which you should giving? For critical, what is the error message? What is the number which you want? Okay, so and basically it says that if you want to link it, how do you link it? Okay, and what is the timeout for your connection? Okay, now if I give it a value, let us assume that I give 1 for warning, and actually ping is happening in 2 milliseconds, so then it is a warning state. Your Nagios state converts into warning. If I say that for ping it should respond back in 5 as critical. Okay, and now if the ping is not responding back in 5, that becomes a critical state. Now let me try something. Let me go back to the same stuff which I've used. Okay, and rather than giving this, I'll give some address. Okay, which is 172.31.31 dot, oh sorry, 31.31.31. Are you saying that is a hypothetical address? It doesn't exist, the IP address which I have given. Now you see what is the warning which Nagios gives us. Okay, so in this libexcc, for every command you will have some CLI options. You will have CLI options, and basically these CLI only you are configuring in your commands. Okay, so if you install plugins, you will get more than this. Tomorrow if you install third-party plugins, you will be getting more commands like this. Okay, these are executables, these are basic executables. Now let me get into the configuration file, which is okay. Okay, let me do it from here. Vi at c objects, right? Objects localhost dot objects. Just yeah, if you see over here, see what is it? The warning setting is telling that 100. I'm okay even if it responds back in 100 milliseconds. Okay, and it will become critical if it is unable to respond in 500 milliseconds. Okay, and 20% and 60%. These, if you see, check underscore ping takes 4 arguments, and the 4 are mentioned over here, and it takes the host name which you are passing from here. The host name is being passed from here. Similarly, you go to any command which is over here, he is just filling the CLI. So for example, here what is it? Check local underscore users. Okay, now let me go back to the folder. Cd libexcc. Okay, check underscore. Yeah. One minute. There are some folders also in here. Okay. CD. Man, this variable is not in path. Okay. So I'll do one thing. Okay. The plugins path is not visible. Actually, there are some other things which are getting from plugin. I'm not sure where they are basically. Okay. Whatever it is. So check cd libexec. Okay. And then check underscore log. Okay. So basically there will be some exes over here. I'm unable to find that log users, but if you do varies and then or else if you scan through your system for plugins, there might be other folder where the stuff is present. But the whole point over here is these are all executables. Whatever you are seeing over here, they are all executables. And basically, whenever you install Nagios, you will be getting some of them. Okay. And whenever you download third-party plugins, you will be getting some more. But if you take Nagios Enterprise, you get many. There is no need for you to even think of a custom plugin in the case of Nagios Enterprise. And every stuff, every command which you are seeing over here will have some sort of CLI, some sort of command line arguments, right? And the command line arguments in the case of our Nagios file are passed using exclamatory symbols. Okay, if we see something like check underscore ping exclamatory mark 10, that means that he is passing the first command line argument, which is 10. Okay, so generally that is how we see the convention. For example, in the check underscore ping, we have seen the command which looks like check underscore ping exclamatory mark 100 comma 20 percentage, and then one more exclamatory mark telling that it is a second argument, and now the percentage there was 500 comma 60 or something like that. So every exclamatory mark denotes that you are passing one argument to it. So basically any arguments which you are seeing over here will be passed over the command lines. And for this, for every command, you would have basically some sort of documentations. Let me see if I can find local users. Hopefully I will. But unfortunately, this part you have to Google it. What are the command line arguments and what do they mean for you? Right? Yeah, it is not there. Okay. So Nagios command check underscore local underscore users. Okay. This is from Nagios plugins. Okay. Yeah, good. Yeah, the whole list over here. Now let us take some of them. You want to monitor your DHCP server. So then you will be writing a command which basically takes the following details. You would be passing check underscore DHCP, then you would be using the exclamatory marks and then you would be passing the symbols. Anything can be executed via CLI and also from the commands. And in the commands you use a particular syntax which is exclamatory based, right? And even then, even for that, you would be finding a lot of examples. For example, you go to the Nagios sample config files. You would find hell lot because this was Nagios is present approximately for not less than 10 years now, and you would find hell lot of samples. So these are some of the samples. He has given you a template which you can blindly use. Okay, so there are many examples for Nagios. It is not very difficult. The whole point is what are the commands which you have defined, okay, and how do you use them, right? Okay, there is a definition of host itself, right? Let us look at the definition of the host group. define host group Nagios. Okay, he would basically say that in this is the complete documentation of what it is meant for, right? And now if you want to know anything, you can basically get into this example. So this is the host definition, host. Okay, let me go with, okay, are you seeing host group members, right? And there you can pass the whole list of your host groups. Okay, so he's defining a host group and he's calling as a members, and in the members you can give the comma separated list of what are your servers. So for example, I want to add 100 servers, just add 100 servers in this group, and from there on in every service, rather than using a host, use the host group name. Okay, fine. Now plugins, we have downloaded this, by the way. Okay, so if you want any extra functionality in Nagios, these are some open source plugins, but there are some commercial plugins also. For example, from Nagios, you want to send a notification to the pager. You might have seen some of the teams use pager as the, whenever some server goes down, the pager blows, the pager rings actually, and these guys will jump back. I'm not sure how many of you seen those people, but yeah, that can be done from Nagios. Some of the people are integrating Nagios with IVRS system. The call center, whenever we call, it would basically give us some prompting, right? Yeah, the same thing they have done. For all of this, there are third-party plugins. Nagios, third-party plugins, you would find hell lot of them. So Nagios, you just Google for them, you would find hell lot of them. So you can Google something like, for example, most of the people don't use it for commands; they use it for alerting. So how do I send a notification to the mobile system? How do I send a notification? How do I send a SMS from Nagios? For that, you have a lot of third-party providers, right? But for the basic commands on the monitoring, we don't do much. We just see whether the server is working. We will just see whether the HTTP is pinging or not. So the other important command over here is, we have that over here, check underscore HTTP. Very important command. Okay, because these days all of our servers are HTTP servers. Okay, now let me just try this. Check underscore HTTP. Okay, now you have to fill in all of that. Okay, so for that there is no need for you to worry about anything. Just Google for Nagios check underscore HTTP sample usage. Okay, you will get the basic stuff, but let us try to understand what is in here. He's asking the host name, the IP address, URI, and port. So for example, you have built the Tomcat application and you want to see whether that application is reachable or not. Application is reachable or not. So then what you would do, you would just basically say check underscore HTTP minus H if you have a host name, or else you can go with minus I and give the IP address of that system. Okay, and then URI of your web application path. If you want, you can give any of these, and then give the port name. If it has something like 8080, or if it is 80, there is no need for you to give anything. Okay, and then if you have any client certificate file or a private key, you do that. But see, are using minus W? Yeah, minus W, warning time in seconds, 10 seconds. If in 10 seconds if I'm not getting the response, it is warning. 20 seconds I'm not getting, it is error. That depends on your application. That's it. You just do that, and you best then your Nagios will start monitoring your web application, and it will not see whether the application is working correctly or not. The only thing Nagios can check is whether your application is up and running or not. Okay, whenever you basically send a response to that, you should be getting the 200 acknowledgement, and 200 is nothing but a status code which is okay on the website. Okay, so for the people who don't know about this status codes, just click F12 on your browser. F12, get into the section which is network. Okay, and let me type google.com. Okay, let me go back to my original request. So what is the status code which I got? 200, right? For if it is success, you will get 200, right? Now let me type google.com slash, let me not use google.com, qt.net slash test me slash testing. So what is the error which I got now? 404. 404 is page is not found. So in HTTP, basically you will not get errors basically via what you are seeing on the browser. Basically these error codes will tell you what is happening. So check underscore HTTP will work only when 200 is a response. If you get any other thing like 500 series, 500 is server side errors, internal server error, or response has been timed out, okay, or 401 not authorized, 404 basically which is page not found. Okay, you have to remember some of the HTTP status codes while you are doing this kind of activity, right? So basically what you can do is just make a note of 5 to 6 HTTP status codes. Okay, before going to the interviews, you can Google for it and you would find the whole setup. You can go with anything is fine. HTTP status codes. Okay, and in this, if you see on a broader note, this is what it is. Whenever you see any status code which is with 1, that means that it is information. With 2, success. With 3, redirection. Redirection is whenever you type fb.com, I mean fb.com doesn't have a site, it goes to facebook.com. So the response code of that will be 3 series. It could be 301, 302, or 303, whatever it is. 4 is client side errors and 5 is server side errors. And now if you get down, probably he might give you some examples. See, 200 is okay, 201 is created, accepted, right? So focus more on 4 and 5. Okay, 4 and 5 is important. Okay, not the other series. In 4 and 5, at least try to remember some of the stuff. 404, 401, okay, 403, right? Some of the errors. Okay, so that when they ask what are the different kinds of status codes which you get, you can tell that okay, sometimes we get 401 when we are trying to access the web page which requires authentication and we have not provided the credential details. For example, if you give your email link and then I try to access and I don't provide my credentials, I'll be getting 401 saying that you are supposed to authenticate but you have not done it, right? So some of the errors of 400 and 500 series are quite essential. Okay, internal server error not implemented is not the very stuff. 503, 500, 503 and 504, this you see a lot in your what do you say, day-to-day lives. You install Tomcat and basically you try to access it and then you might get 500 series. The server is not up or the server is crashing, business logic has gone wrong, right? If the server is not up, you will be getting 400 series error because you are trying to access a URL which does not exist. But once you have sent the request and if your server is failing after that, for example, you said that login and till login the page was available, but when you log in after that you are not seeing anything, that is a server error generally. In that cases you will be getting 500 series errors, right? So whenever your server is hanged, you will be getting this request timeout. It has taken some packets but not completely. So please do have some idea of this errors, at least 5 error codes in 4 and 5 series. Understand what is them. గుర్తెట్టుకోవటం కాదు, గుర్తెట్టుకుంటే ఎవరికి ఉపయోగం లేదు. Okay, don't try to mug it up. The stuff which I am interested in is when do they come into play. So when do I see 401? I see 401 when I don't give username and password and try to access something. Okay, 40, basically the other thing is 404. 404 is whenever you have given a URL which doesn't exist, right? So for example, I've given a URL right now which is qt.com/testme, that there is no URL like that. So in that case you will get page not found. So try to remember at least 5 error codes. Okay, and one success code which is blind, which is 200 series. Okay, in 90% of the cases you will be getting 200. This is very important. All right, anyway, for testers, for the people who are doing web services or REST services testing, this is quite mandatory. If you don't know this, you can't do anything. right? Okay. Now let me go back, and now let me read through the files which we have seen in localhost. Cd, let's see, objects, okay, vi. This file yesterday was looking confusing, right? Now let us see what it is. Define host is fine. Define host group is also, I'm good with that. Okay, let me get into service definition. Is it making sense now? So what is this trying to tell? Define a service, okay, and basically host name is local host. So you have to execute this on a local host, and now description is whatever you type it in it. So that's fine. And see the command. So you are calling a command which is called as check underscore ping, and to that you are passing two arguments, which is 100.0 comma whatever percentages which you are seeing over. Now let me scroll down. You are defining one more service over here. Okay. In this, he is using a command which is check underscore local underscore. Okay. This command takes two arguments and is passing that. Right. Because every time, whenever you are creating, basically what you say, commands will be generic. They will not have a specific numeric values. But in the service, we pass whatever values which we want. And the values which you are passing are your lower and upper bounds to raise an alert. Okay. So in Nagios, whenever it raises alert, it will be in only three states: okay, warning, critical. Okay is when your condition is met. Warning is for whatever value which you have configured, saying that okay, this is a state where I need to be alert. Okay. Critical is when it is failed. Critical is not a usable scenario. So in Nagios, whenever a check happens, the result of it is one of three states: okay, warning, critical. Critical is an error scenario. Critical is an error scenario. So for example, you say check underscore ping and the ping doesn't respond back in 1 minute. That means that it is not going to work anyway. Right? That is critical. Ping is responding back, but it is taking more time. That is warning state. Ping is happening quickly. Okay. Okay. Similarly, here, check partition. He's just saying that I am okay. Warning for me, 20% of the free space is available. If it is less than 10%, it is critical for me. If I have less than, for example, I have 10 GB hard disk. Okay. If my free space is less than 2 GB, warning. Less than or equal to 1 GB, critical. Okay. If your numbers are different, change those numbers. These are default values. You can change those numbers. So now look at other service. Okay. So check underscore local underscore users. If you have 20 users in your system, that is a warning. More than 50 users on your system, that is a error. Okay. When I'm saying on your system, I am not saying logged in is what I mean. How many users are logged in into your system currently? Your system cannot handle more than 50 servers, 50 people at a time. That's what he's trying to tell. Every command will have something like this. Okay. The only thing which you have to do is write a configuration file and fill these command values based out of your situation. And generally, your situations in the cases of Nagios are not very different. They're absolutely the same. Okay. So you will not have much of a difference over here. So now is it making sense? Yes. The command yesterday when we saw this was looking as Greek and Latin. Now is it looking the same? Right? But in Nagios, since we can't use that minus W and command and all of that, we use this notation of exclamation marks. Exclamation mark is passing an argument. Exclamation mark is passing an argument. All right. So that's it. You generally don't even write configuration files in the cases of Nagios, but you need to understand if something goes wrong. Okay. And configuration files, if you want to find out where are your server configuration files, where do you go first? First, you need to go to the Nagios configuration file in nagios.cfg. For example, if I have found out this path from nagios.cfg. In nagios.cfg, what would happen? You would have either CFG file or CFG dir. Go to that folder. That's where your server's configurations are there. Now you go and play around with that. Okay. Same thing in Nagios 3 or same thing in Nagios 4. right? This concept doesn't change. This concept doesn't change. Nagios 4 has more plugins when compared to Nagios 3. That's it by default. Okay, some of the errors being fixed, not a major change. So even in Nagios 3, the only thing which you need to find out is the first file which you need to know in Nagios is where is my nagios.cfg file. If you know that file, you can go to anywhere. Okay, so generally when you install in your offices, they will create a symlink to etc nagios. cd etc nagios will consist of this configuration files. Okay, and in the bin will be in user local or user share, whatever it is, right? Okay, so tomorrow if someone says that okay, I have a new command, okay, is it very difficult? No. The only thing which you have to do is you have to define a service, call that command, pass the arguments. And for every command which you are using, there is already some samples of how to use that. So basically you have to find out what is the error situation for you. Okay, I am on a production server, it is a critical production server. Okay, and the response has to come back in 2 milliseconds. Response has to come back in 2 milliseconds. So whenever you are doing check underscore http, the time which you give will be very less. For warning, it is 1.5 milliseconds. For error, 2.1 milliseconds is also an error for you. Okay, one is okay, or whatever it is. So you set some numbers. Okay, so how many states do we have in Nagios? 3. What are they? Okay, critical, and warning. Okay, warning is not a failure state, it might lead to a failure. Okay, so now on every command, okay, you can send the notifications, but for that you need to install a mail client there. Let it be a send mail or whatever it is. Okay, so for that I'll be sharing you a document, blindly follow that, but for that you need to have an smtp address. Okay, let me find out whether how to I have never used Google here. నేను ఇక్కడ Nagios తో Google వాడలా, because I actually have my company's smtp credentials which are already configured. It is very simple for me to use it, but let me try it out with Google, because most of us don't have any smtp server as such. Okay, let me configure send mail or some exec to send these mails, and I'll be sharing your documentation of sending mails when something fails. Okay, but one thing is for sure is the mails will not be in your inbox, they might be in your spam whenever I'm using Gmail as a uh, what do you say, as a mailing client for it. Okay, that's the only thing. In companies you don't have this problem, because you know what is your smtp server, you know what is your username or password, you can use that. Or for these kind of servers, generally what we do is we create something called as a service account. For Nagios, your admins will create a service account, which basically from which you can send your mails. All right, so this is not possible in Google or personal kind of mails. So I'll show you the configuration. I'll document the configuration. That is the last thing which you need to worry about. Okay, but I am happy if you understand what a service is, what is that we have written there, what a command is, what is that we have written there. In the command, if you see in the command, we define how to use that libexec components. You go into commands.cfg and see how they have defined check ping there. So in check ping, basically they will define how to use it. Okay, in service they will pass the actual values, where what will be a warning, what will be a critical state is passed in service, right? And then you have contact is a person with an email ID. So I have not shown you contact throughout this class, right? So let me show you some contacts. Contact is very simple, it is also like define host. You are saying that define contact, give the name of the contact, and then you would be giving basically I am email address of him. So basically in this machine there is no configuration, that's why it is telling that Nagios at the rate localhost. But actually in your company you might give individual person's details, or you might define a contact which is a distribution list already. Define a contact which is a distribution list, PDL, so that whenever some error happens it will send directly to that, right? It depends on your office's configurations. And similarly you can define contact groups. So you will have contact groups like Nagios admins, application admins, right? Managers, testers, whatever group you will basically create, and then you will make it. Okay, fine. Last thing before I wind it up, let me just show you vi commands.config. Okay. Check host alive is a command. But what does it mean when we say check host alive is mentioned over here. And if you see here, he is passing the command line arguments. Here, if you see, he is passing the command line arguments. Now let me come down. Check local disk. Okay. Check local disk. What is he checking? He is checking something called as a libexec command, which is check underscore disk, and he is passing arg1 and arg2 and arg3. And this, if I have to use it in my service, what will I use? In service, my command name is check underscore local underscore disk exclamation mark first argument, exclamation mark second argument, exclamation mark third argument. Okay. Check local underscore users also will be here because it is not actually a exe, it is a command. Okay. So for example, check local underscore users. See what he is using. Check local underscore users. In this, he is indirectly using a command. He is using something called as check underscore users, and for this he is taking two arguments. So that's why you use check users exclamation mark 20 exclamation mark 50, right? So 20 means minus w, which is warning limit, right? Minus c, which is error limit. So every command which you are using over here is defined over here. Pardon me. Check local process. దాని command line argument లేదు ఉంటుంది. So I don't remember all of them, and I don't want to also, because if I want to understand what is that yes, I would go to the Nagios documentation page and I would see check procs command, and then I will find out what minus s is, right? Because it is very difficult for us to remember all of that. But what is important is check command is a raw thing. In there you will be using command line, and in this command line, if you are creating something like arg1 and arg2, this you will be passing from service, and in the service you will be linking either a host or host group name. So basically what will happen is, for example, okay, this is clear, right? Now let us see the link. I have written something like service, and in the service I say host name, whatever it is, local host, or I'll pass something, right? And then what is that I am doing over here? I am saying command, and in the command I am saying check underscore ping, or whatever it is, some check underscore my underscore command. Let us assume that this is a something like this, and then here I am passing 10 20. So for this, what will be there? There will be a define command in commands, okay, where you will have something like check underscore my underscore command, which means whatever is the command line, okay. And in the command we define command line argument itself, but in the service we pass it using exclamatory symbols, okay. Anything which are defined as arg1 and arg2 are passed via command line arguments from service, okay. For you, if you, for example, if you see what the starting stuff was here, there were no arguments. Check host alive will not take any arguments, right? Because there is no arg1 and arg2 over here. But if you look at the other commands, they are taking arguments. So in the service to use, you will be defining commands, and in the commands actually you are writing CLI stuff. In the commands you are writing CLI. So you see any command now. Check underscore SMTP uses libexec process, which is check underscore STTP SMTP, and it takes two arguments, okay. Minus h host address, okay, it takes only one argument, not two. Host address, there is no need for you to tell, because you just give in the service, you define as a host name, and that will come and fill over here, but you are passing one argument. All right. Tomorrow if you have to define your own command, where you will define? You will define in this commands.cfg. And where will you use it? In the service. So in the service there will also be one more link, which is called as host name or host group name. You will fill that so that everything is linked. So are the things linked now? In libexec we have actual CLI applications which can basically run, that are logically defined in commands.cfg, and these are used in services. And in the service, this command is linked to a host. Are we clear about this relation now? Okay, so whenever you install any plugin, what would happen? They will be present in libexec. Okay, and every exec which you see over here will have some command line argument, some way of defining command lines. Okay, this we will define it as a command in commands.cfg file, and whatever command which we have defined will be using in service. Okay, and this service we will be using in our server.cfg, whatever it is. My server is localhost, so that's why I have defined it in localhost. Okay, my server was server 1, I have defined it in server1.cfg. So this is a link, a plain executable to commands.cfg to a service definition in your hostname.cfg or hostgroup.cfg, as simple as that. Are we clear, or do we have any doubts over here? If any server fails, how do we define a notification? So basically that is enabled by default. The only thing which you have to do is basically you have to configure the mail. Okay, you have to configure a mail, executable mail. Let me go back to the first command which you are seeing. Okay, so there is a command called as notify host by email. Okay, this you have to just do by notifications is enabled. But if you see over here, this command will use user bin printf or whatever it is. Okay, here you have to configure your mail client. So for example, if you configure something like user bin send mail, so remove that printf and put that send mail. So whenever a notification host by mail is called, it should be calling an exe which is capable of sending a mail. That's how you do it. Okay, uh, let me come back. There are some questions. How can an application system monitor be done? It is not possible and it is not sensible also. Okay, they are not same, right? Application monitoring will tell you something different and system monitoring will tell you something different. Okay, but if you want to achieve it via a single tool, you can. Okay, because in even in Nagios you can define commands which one go into application, but is that sensible? No. Okay, so but if you want to do it in one tool and desperate, your organization is desperate about it, go with elastic stack, install beats. Okay, use something like metric beats, packet beats, which are capable of doing both the system and application monitoring. Right, how does Nagios server pull the details from the defined host under the configurations without authenticating into the host? The basic stuff is the stuff which we are trying to execute over here doesn't require any authentication stuff. Okay, because we are speaking with the basic open protocols. Check ping, for pinging you don't require authentication. For checking the HTTP you don't require authentication. So it uses the commands which doesn't require authentication. If it requires authentication, it will fail anyway. Okay, so anyway, if it requires authentication, you have to pass them. That will be an argument. $arg1 and $arg2 username and password could be. That's how it would be. Okay, yeah, we have seen the CPU load of server 1. Can you explain how the server is able to monitor CPU loads for that host? For that NRPE plugin is required. It is not monitoring the CPU load of the other's machine. It is monitoring the CPU load of the current machine. Right? The other machine is not up yet. Not up yet. Right? How can we check the status of the virtual IP? It doesn't know whether it is a virtual IP or a static IP. The only thing it knows is it is an IP address, whether it is pingable or not. Nagios doesn't know many things as what we do. For it, the things are very simple. You give an IP address, it will find out whether it is working or not. That's it. Right? Okay. If any service fails, I think I have said this. How many commands can be defined in a service? There is no limit. Okay. If you are speaking about per service, in service you have only one command. You define a service with one command. But in an Nagios file, you can define as many services or as many commands as you want. There is no limit as such. Okay. Yeah. Basically, you can install any mail utils tool and then configure that in your notification host by the stuff, and then you would be receiving the mails. Right. But I have never tried with Google, so I'm not sure whether it will work or whether it will fail. But let me try with installing one of these tools and then sharing your document. I'm really not interested in this mailing aspects because they're already configured. Yeah, if Bhaskar is saying that, then I think it is definitely worth. Bhaskar, can you please prepare me the document so that I can what do you say, work on something else, configuring. Yeah, thanks. Okay. So Bhaskar will be sharing a document which will consist of how to configure Nagios to send a mail from Gmail, and also Bhaskar also document on one simple command configuration so that ping fails and someone receives mail. Okay, to some contact. That is more than enough. Yeah. Okay. In real time, can we do a single tool which develops both system and application monitoring? Yeah, you can use App Dynamics. It does everything, but it costs $500,000 to your company. There are tools. I'm not saying that there are no tools. The point is how costly it is. Elastic Stack, which we have discussed, zero cost. Nagios, which you are discussing, zero cost. The only thing which your company has to give me is give me some virtual machine so that I can install them. That's it. That's the only cost of these tools. So in the other case, you have to anyway install the servers. You have the installation or the maintenance cost, and in addition to that, you would have licensing cost or a subscription cost also. But here we are saving on that. Okay, our main focus is also saving the costs, not only getting the things done. Right? Okay. Okay then. So that's what I had, and yeah, that is what I have, and basically what I want you to do is yeah, from Terraform we know how to install Nginx, right? Yes. Okay. So from Terraform, create a Nginx. Whether you do it by Packer or whether you do it directly, that is your choice. Okay. And then monitor that application using that application's logs using Elastic Stack. Okay. And Elastic Stack has 3 servers, right? And basically your Nginx 1.4. These 4 servers ping monitor it via Nagios, whether they are up and running or not. So you have to create 4 server configuration files: server 1, server 2, server 3, and server 4. Right? And the thing which I'm interested in is check ping. That's it. I'm not interested in any other command. Check ping is the only command which I want you to monitor and see whether all the servers are up and running or not. Okay. And if they fail, you should get a mail. That documentation will be shared to you by Bhaskar. Okay, you will get it. But till that point, configure till this point. So you have Terraform involved, Packer involved, right? Elastic Stack involved, and then Nagios is also involved. This is a use case which I want you to try it out. From Terraform, deploy a Nagios server, and that I want you to monitor it using Elastic Stack and Nagios. Okay. From Nagios, you have to monitor also Elastic Stack because even that is 3 servers for you. All right. If you do this, that is more than enough. So for this, whatever assignment which we have done. Okay. Okay, then I'm stopping it at here. Okay, and we'll basically let me start the Azure class. For the people who are DevOps, you can leave. Yeah, I'm stopping this class, guys. Thanks.